Cool. All right, I think we're live here, right?
Oh shoot, we sure are. Well, not live on Facebook, but we're live in Zoom.
Cool. So if you're getting on here, we need just a couple more seconds. It looks like we're live on Facebook at this point. So we're going to get rolling. But obviously, if you want to let us know where you're viewing from today, it's always fun to kind of see where people are coming in from. We'll go ahead and get things kicked off here. We got Bob Tompkins joining us today. Very excited to chat. Those of you that know Bob probably know him from one of his 3 music parody videos, all of which have gone, I would consider, viral to some degree or another. One of them big time, over 1 million total views, and we're gonna be talking about that today. But one of the things I also want you to really take away from this conversation, we'll hopefully get a chance to get into, is that Bob does a lot of other kinds of videos, all right? Video is a key part of his business strategy, and the viral stuff is awesome. We're definitely gonna talk about it, but I also want you to hear about his other strategies as well. So Bob, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, Nick, Jeff, appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me on here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's start with, I'm sure, the stuff that most people are probably here to hear about, which is these viral videos, these music video parodies that you've done. I think the one, if I remember correctly, the one that's gotten the most attention was the Old Town Realtor. Is that the one that got the most views?
Yeah, that was the first one. I think reach-wise, it reached like 2.5 million people. It got viewed like 1.4 million times.
Wow.
Across platforms. So yeah, pretty. If you can call that viral, I think.
I think that's viral. Yeah, I don't know if you had over 2 million total followers when you started. I don't think so. So I think if you get more views than you have followers, that's viral in my book, at least. So that's awesome. So let's, for those of our viewers maybe that have not seen that video, I think a lot of them probably have, but just tell us a little bit about the concept and also what original song it's based on.
So yeah, the Old Town Realtor was originally based on Old Town Road. Which was the biggest song of 2019. This was before we were doing any sort of like parody content or anything like that. I was just doing a few I had a couple weekly series that I was doing then, as well as some talking head videos at the time. Nothing big like that. And me and my videographer actually went to a baseball game together, and on the way to the game, Old Town Road came on the radio. We started talking about it, and I was like, hey, I should change the lyrics to this and write a parody for it. And he called Wales, who owns the media company that I work with, and Wales was like, that's a terrible idea. He's like, that's not going to do well at all. Because, I mean, if you watch real estate parody videos, they're almost always cringeworthy. People don't know what they're doing. They do a terrible job. So that's what Wales thought was going to happen. So he tried to shut it down immediately, but we went with it anyways. Ended up being probably the biggest real estate parody of the year, probably. I don't know if there's another one that really touches it.
I mean, as far as I've seen, which is not the entire internet, but I'll give you that title officially. That's awesome.
I appreciate it.
Well, so tell me about kind of the concept behind doing this, right? Because you've been making other kinds of video, and we'll get to kind of talk about those in a second. But where did, obviously heard the song, I guess, why did you think to yourself, like, I need to make a parody of this? Like, why did that kind of strike you at that moment?
So when I was a kid, I used to always rewrite lyrics to songs. I would do it in the car, like with my parents. I would just like put my own lyrics over whatever song was there, just trying to be funny. I say my parents never thought it was, but I always did that kind of as a point of humor for myself. And actually, you know, with the Old Town Road, I had previously like played around with that and sent it out on a Snapchat to like 4 or 5 people. And even one of the people I sent it to was like, you should do the whole song. And I was like, yeah, right, I'm not going to do that. Because, I mean, it was just something I always played around with just for my own amusement, not really realizing that it was something that could be produced at a high level and actually get engaged with. So it was really just taking something that I did for fun on my own and then actually turning it into something that could be taken in by an audience.
Makes sense. Yeah. Well, so what I kind of take away from that is that this is something you were already kind of doing for fun, right? I mean, so it's, you know, I as you said, a lot of these do end up being kind of cringeworthy. I remember there was a story about a real estate team in Denver that made a video that basically got them all fired. So obviously you don't want to go down this route unless you're kind of prepared for it. So let's take it a step back. We'll come back to talking more about the viral videos, but you had already been making video content, right? And I think that's something we definitely want to distinguish here, because I don't, if you have the guts to go out and just start with a straight up real estate, music parody video, good for you, I guess. But it sounds like it might make sense to start with some other stuff. So take us a step back, kind of where you very first started thinking about using video in a business sense, and walk us through that idea. I mean, where did the idea come from? How long ago was that? All that kind of stuff.
So I would say probably late 2017 or early 2018, I discovered Gary Vaynerchuk and started taking in a lot of his content. And everything that he was putting out was like, hey, you need to put out, as much content as possible, just, content overload to people. And I was like, okay, well, if I start doing that, I can't afford to pay someone to do that for me. Like, I've got to do it myself. So I started looking into purchasing some different equipment, probably spent the majority of 2018 just kind of researching, kind of developing somewhat of a strategy on what I was going to do to try and just get my face out as much as I could and be like a local celebrity, like a micro influencer was kind of my goal in that. So I went and bought a bunch of video equipment, and I was like, I'm going to put out as much content as I can. I'm going to create stuff that's engaging and entertaining for people to watch, that actually provides value and benefit to the viewer. So bought about $1,500 worth of equipment, set up a little home studio, and I started off just doing some talking head videos, and then started a little series called Beer of the Week with a local beer shop owner here, because I love drinking beer. And that was really about all I was doing at that time. So it was what was called Foodie Fridays at the time, which has now evolved into a whole nother thing for me. But then it was just like, set up the camera. Me and a buddy of mine that's a lender in town, we're just like eating burgers on camera. And that was about it. That was all the content I was doing, but just trying to produce something that, all it cost me was the equipment. And then, we were hoping to become kind of micro influencers in the area. And that's, all of that is kind of a Gary Vee mentality that drove me to doing that.
Well, so I think a lot of our viewers probably know who Gary Vee is, but let's pretend that some of them don't. And sort of help us understand kind of the philosophy behind doing that, right? Because I've definitely talked to agents sort of like, I'm going to make videos about local restaurants or, beer, what's the point? How do I get real estate out of it, right? So sort of just find that concept that Gary Vee really teaches about why doing this sort of content works.
So Gary's mindset on things is completely geared towards branding and being the most well-known whatever you are in your town. So for me, trying to be the most well-known real estate agent, the thing is people don't enjoy watching real estate content. I always say to us being in the industry, like, we love it. We can watch every show that's on TV about real estate. We can talk real estate to everyone. My parents are real estate agents. When they come over to my house, that's all we talk about. But if you're not in real estate, it's really not a fun topic. It's something that people only do on average 3 or 4 times in their entire lifetime. It's not something that they want to have dinner conversations about. So if they see that content online, they're not going to watch it. So people are always focused on, if I create real estate content, it'll drive business. It's actually going to do the opposite. It's going to kill your engagement rate online. People aren't going to watch it. They don't want to be a part of it. So if you watch Gary Vee's stuff, there's very little time that he talks about actually putting together marketing for these companies that he works for. There's very little that he spends talking about wine, even though he has his own wine company. So he spends a ton of time building that kind of influencer image, talking about how he got to where he is and the personal mindsets that he has, is because everybody is looking at that for inspiration. It's engaging content. In your local town, especially for me, craft beer is big where I am. We're kind of in a foodie area of South Carolina. So talking about food and talking about beer are engaging pieces of content for people to watch. They want to try that beer, try that restaurant. And it pushes me out to people that want to watch that content because it's something that they can find value in. And over time, after seeing video and video and video of it, they learn who I am. They learn that I'm a realtor. They follow my page. And then I become that most well-known realtor in town. which is still something I'm working on, but you know, that's kind of the philosophy that's behind it.
No, that's awesome. That makes a lot of sense to obviously Jeff and me, right? You know, we definitely get it. But here's
I'm giving a standing ovation to that, Nick. I'm giving because I want everybody to listen. I want to repeat that. If you put out business content all the time, will actually hurt your business or hurt your brand on social media. Remember that.
Right. Well, and there's kind of a rule, Jeff. You want to talk about the 80-20 rule for a second, or I don't know, Bob, if you want to chime in on that. I mean, obviously we're here to.
You know what? I'd like to hear it because there is no factual data percentage. But Bob, what is your take on percentage of content that should be personal or authentic content versus business content?
Well, I mean, I think the 80-20 rule is a good one. Obviously, it's a widely preached rule in the fact that you should put out 4 pieces of content that are you know, giving, 4 pieces that are giving, one piece of content that's asking. I probably do it more 90-10. The only videos I put out that are asking for business are my listing videos. I don't really put anything else out that is asking for business outside of that. I mean, you could say that the podcast I do, that we have a video format for, that is business related, but it's not an ask for business. It's more of a, you know, it's a helpful tool to other realtors. But outside of that, I mean, it's the more you can put out that gives value to people, the more they're going to respond well when you ask for business, because then they like you, they know you, they trust you, they want to give you business, they want to help get the word out that you're selling something, because they feel like they've gotten way more from you than they've ever given to you. So that's the idea behind it.
No, that makes sense.
And the reality is your listing videos, you're not even asking for anything. You're really doing more branding than you are actually. All you're doing is showcasing a house. You're not saying, come to my open house, or, you know what I mean?
Right.
I love it, man. I love that you said that.
Yeah, I mean, those videos, I maybe have a 5-second blurb at the end saying that if you want to schedule a showing, to text or call me. And that's like the only business ask I ever put into my videos. So, I mean, and it's worked very well for me. And I think people don't always understand that the giver's mentality actually gets you more than somebody trying to take.
And so I want to dive a little deeper on this, Bob. And I think before I get into sort of breaking the strategy down further, because basically, I mean, I've talked to, you know, hundreds of real estate agents over the past few years about video. This particular strategy seems to really be hard because it's an investment, right? I mean, this is not the kind of thing where, you know, that's why we kind of pulled people in with the viral videos, and we will talk more about those again. But that's, you know, I wanted to kind of take a step back and say, hey, it's not just about doing one viral video and all of a sudden you have a stream of clients coming in. It is really more a gradual developing of relationships with people in the community, right? So let's kind of skip ahead for a second just to get this out of the way. Let's talk about results, right? Because I think that's where we do get a lot of people challenging us, and that is fair. Is like, hey, if I do this, if I put all this time, all this effort, you know, for a lot of people, get outside my comfort zone, you know, being on camera is not necessarily a natural skill. What am I going to get in return, right? So give us, you know, first of all, how long have you been doing videos? So kind of how many months has it been? And then what have the results been in your business?
Okay, so I started doing video in January of 2019. In 2018, I sold $4.2 million of real estate. That was without any video. When I started doing video, I understood from the beginning it was a long-term approach. I actually anticipated in 2019 that my business would scale back because of the amount of investment I was going to have to put and the amount of time I was going to have to put into starting up video marketing. Because I knew it was going to take me away from prospecting and following up with leads, being able to spend all the time doing this. And that's exactly what happened. I sold $3.7 million in 2019. But this year in 2020, if just what I have on my board closes in the next 2 weeks, I will have already closed $7.5 million in 2020. Wow. So that's on pace for more than double where I was at before I started doing video. So, I mean, Gary Vee and a lot of these people that you follow that talk about video marketing tend to say it's about a 2-year turnaround on the investment. The first year, you're really not going to see anything because nobody knows who you are. So like that first video, there's a reason I wasn't doing LabCoat interviews after Old Town Realtor dropped. It was just one video. You know, it wasn't that impressive that I had done one video, even though, you know, the views are impressive. What's more impressive is the second and the third parody, and the fact that there's consistency to it that keeps it up. That's when I become less of just a one-hit wonder. You know, I don't want to be a Mamba number 5. That's not what I want to be. So, you know, the more stuff you put out, then that brand grows and they begin to trust you, and they trust that the content is going to be readily available for them to watch. And then you become kind of that household name within your town. That's the goal of this, is not to generate leads on day one. It's to generate brand awareness that years 3 through 30, your phone's just ringing. So you're trying to stop chasing the business, and that's why it takes time. So for me, like, if you don't see immediate return, I saw literally a dip in business the first year of doing this. So it's not an immediate thing.
So let's talk about, you know, other impacts potentially, right? Because I mean, you mentioned one thing that stood out as you talked about kind of just standard prospecting 2 years ago, and obviously you were doing pretty well as an agent already. You made this transition to video. Obviously now you're starting to see the clear kind of financial benefit of doing so. And one of the things I like about this too is a brand is sort of a momentum builder, right? It's like once it's out there and you're known, it just sort of continues growing and sort of snowballing. Are there any other benefits? Like, so for instance, has any of the other marketing you're doing changed? Are you still doing as much prospecting? Did anything shift in terms of replacing something with video? Tell us about that side of things.
Right. So I don't prospect at all anymore. So I don't prospect. I don't cold call at all. Now I get leads through Remax. I get leads through my brokerage that I'm at, which I follow up with. And, I do get some business that way. But for the most part, my phone rings. It either rings from agents that are in other areas that want to refer me business, which I've seen a massive uptick in referral business since I began doing video. And then my phone rings with clients in my town. So it's become one of those things that, like, I can wake up and instead of spending my 3 hours in the morning, calling my prospect list and running through what leads I've been trying to follow up with, I can sit down and plan out videos for like an hour, and then I can spend 2 hours hanging out with my wife that's on maternity leave, having a cup of coffee at the house, sitting on the back porch. Like, the beginning of my days are way more relaxed because I'm not having to get up and immediately try and find business, because the business is finding me.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think that's worth, sort of, repeating almost. It's like that, I think, is such an undervalued impact of building a brand, but in particular video, because we know obviously all three of us very much believe in video as the way to build a brand. But that, to me, like that is incredible, right? Because you're not having to do probably personally, I hate cold calling. I hate prospecting. I'm actually an introvert. I don't even really like networking all that much. Like going into the big room with 200 people and sort of interrupting conversations and all that. And I don't do any cold calling or prospecting, haven't for years. And actually now, and I'm curious if you've experienced these kind of benefits too. Like when I go out and network with people already know who I am, and they'll come over and start conversations. And a lot of times they want to talk about what I do for a living. In my case, that's, making videos, teaching people to make videos, which means no small talk, no awkward standing in the corner, because again, introvert, not the most fun in the world. So, that to me, it's like, that's incredible. So you got the mornings, you got your mornings back. I think that's something a lot of people could really benefit from. Anything else, or I guess another question would be, any other ways that you're using video? Obviously, we're talking about kind of a marketing, branding perspective, but have you found any other uses for it in your business outside of that?
I mean, that's pretty much the majority of what I use it for. It's helped use cultivate some good relationships around town. Like I have the beer shop that I do my Beer of the Week videos with. I've had 3 deals this year come out of that shop. And I only spend, an hour a week over there. So it's, pretty cool for me just being able to build those relationships around town, which is a layer on top of the branding that wouldn't exist if I didn't do this. So, those things are added benefits. The biggest thing to me, though, has been the networking benefit of it. And it's so tied to the brand. Like, there is no networking without the brand. There's no brand without the networking, almost. Like they are tied together. But like when I went to R4, which is Remax's global conference, kind of the same way you said that people come up to you, Nick, and they want to talk about what you're doing. When I'm out there, everybody wants to come and talk to me about what I'm doing with my videos and the parodies and the different stuff I'm doing every week. But it has allowed me to build so many relationships. I was used to getting like maybe 2 referrals a year. And a lot of times my broker kind of had to hand those over to me, like because of the area I'm working, it fit best with that referral. And now people just call me directly. I went from maybe doing 2 a year to doing like 10 to 12 referrals this year. So it's that sort of thing doesn't happen if I'm not doing this at a high level, because people wouldn't know who I am.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Hey, well, you know, another thing to bring up about that too is you mentioned the networking piece of this. And so if you're a networker and you like networking, and let's say we get out of COVID and everything goes back to normal, and Nick, I used to say this as well, is one of the byproducts of doing a lot of video is whether you're doing like the quote unquote, the parodies and you're gaining fame, or you're just sharing your life. Like when I did the 2018 and 2018, it was a conversation piece. It makes networking easier. It like gives you an advantage. And so if you're creating video and you're sharing your life and you're doing these kind of things, when you walk into the BNI meeting, when you walk into the the chamber meeting or whatever, people walk right up to you and say, immediately have something to talk. It takes that awkwardness right out of it. Hey, how are your miles coming? Hey, how's your daughter doing? How is your dog? Whatever. It makes business easier beyond the phone ringing. And it's powerful. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, no, that's, I mean, I think we've all obviously sort of benefited from that. And that's, I mean, you know, that's why we try to talk about video as a new form of communication. I mean, this goes sort of beyond just a basic marketing tool, because it's called, not to get into all the sort of psychology of it, it's called a parasocial relationship, a one-sided relationship, the kind of thing that happens with celebrities, where you're a diehard fan of that celebrity and you're super excited to meet them. They have no clue who you are, right? But you have a real relationship. You have a real emotional response to that person. And not that, you know, any of us are trying to become superstars, right? But you talked about that at the beginning, Bob, is sort of that local, we call it being local famous, you know, so kind of having like a following kind of base in the area where people can actually do business with you. And there's obviously all these benefits that come from it. So let's go back to talking about the kind of how, right? So let's give some people some actionable tips here. So going back to when you first got started, right? And we'll kind of walk through from there. How did you decide what kinds of videos to make? What kind of led you to choosing the formats and the types of content you started with?
Right. So I really had no idea what I was doing when I got started. So I actually was talking to Jeff and Tristan earlier today about how I started off with talking head videos. It was like the first 5 or 6 videos I put out were just talking head videos, which are just me talking to the camera about, you know, real estate. I was actually breaking all the rules that I don't do now. Like I was doing them then. The first video I put out was like, what are the 3 things somebody needs to look at before hiring an agent? So it was, you know, very business specific, but it was what I was comfortable talking about. So it got me in front of the camera. It allowed me to, you know, start getting more comfortable being in front of the lens. And then that kind of evolved into like, okay, well, obviously these videos, while they're, in my mind at the time, I was like, they're getting great engagement. They're getting 300 to 400 views each. I was like, maybe there's something people will watch more of. So that's what led me to doing kind of more of the community style videos, because I felt like those could give more value than just me, you know, word vomiting about real estate.
How important was it then to, because that's really interesting, is that obviously your strategy now has very little real estate focus, but that's what you started with. You know, so it sounds like that was important, because if you didn't start talking about things that you were familiar with, comfortable with, like it may have kind of prevented you from starting. I mean, was that sort of the logic behind that, or why did you feel like getting started with real estate was a little bit easier?
I think in hindsight I mean, it obviously makes a lot of sense that I did it the way I did it. But I mean, at the time I didn't know what to talk about. So, and I think in hindsight, looking at it, for other agents, you should just talk about what you're comfortable talking about, because it's going to get you comfortable here. But then also, the more you make videos, the more you have the ideas of how to make other videos. So you're never going to get the creative idea of what to do in front of the camera unless you're actually in front of the camera. So, you know, you're never going to learn how to do a dive off of a diving board if you just spend all day sitting beside the pool. You know, it doesn't work that way. You actually have to dive in to learn how to do something. So for me, like that's where I would encourage agents. Like, you just need to talk about what you're comfortable about, whether it's talking about your pets or your kids or your wife, or, you know, maybe baking, you know, cookies at home. You can set up the camera and film that and talk about that. And it provides value to people because people want to know about your family life. They want to know about, you know, how to make a good peanut butter cookie recipe. You know, that's important to people. So it gets you in front of the camera and it gets you comfortable to where you can then bring in more creative ideas as you develop them.
I love it. Yeah. And I think that's huge advice. I mean, if you're watching right now, like, that's something to really take in, is that you got to start simple. I think that's one of the risks we run when we talk to somebody like Bob, is, you know, you see his 1 million+ views on this really, really awesome looking parody video. And it's very tempting to go try to do that, right? Kind of go out there and, hey, I'm going to make a parody video myself. And those, I think, are the ones that end up kind of cringeworthy because you haven't built up the skills that allow you to do those things correctly, right? I mean, I think that's what I'm really taking away here. And, you know, I mean, if you want to double your business using video and become kind of the go-to guy locally, like Bob, you know, has and is going to continue to do, you don't need to start complicated. I think that's a great takeaway here is, you know, talking head style videos. I mean, I remember Jeff and I had conversations like 2 years back. We were making talking head style videos left and right, and he was not a fan of talking head style videos. But that was the difference, is a lot of people were making them with, it was the very first time they'd ever gotten on camera. And I agreed. I'm like, yeah, this is not the most exciting, but people see this one basic talking head style video. There's not much to it. And then all their family and friends love it because they're just excited for that person, right? They're just excited that they got started, tried something new, and then, you know, they can improve and grow from there. So, you know, if you're taking notes like I am here, make sure you write that down, is that you really start as simple as possible. I mean, that's a huge, huge gem here, especially from somebody that has done viral videos. I mean, to hear that from you, Bob, is really helpful. So,
well, and something to think about with that, with the talking head videos, even if you only get like 50 views on it, it's 50 more views than you would have if you didn't create the video.
Right.
And think about how hard it is to have 50 conversations. Like, to have 50 2-minute conversations, you'll literally spend over an hour and a half doing it. Whereas if I can sit here and record something, even if it is simply from my phone, I can record a 2-minute video and post it in a matter of like 5 minutes. And then I've been able to reduce what would take an hour and 40 minutes down to 5 minutes for me. So you're reaching so many more people, so much more effectively by doing this. Even if the engagement isn't what you want it to be, it still is reaching more people than you could actually going door to door and having conversations.
Yeah. And so my question, just to get your opinion on this, is as more people start making videos, right? So obviously, even just between now and when you started, a lot of agents have started using this tool. Do you sort of expect, or do we think that, you know, the efficiency of all this is going to sort of drop off, right? Because obviously right now there's only so many people that do it. So part of the benefit is like, hey, I can put it out and maybe a couple hundred people watch it just because there's not as many other agents doing it. Do you think that that's going to lose its potency, or is there still a lot of room for more people to kind of jump on this?
I mean, I think there's definitely still room. Obviously, the more people that get in, it will shrink the amount of engagement that you're going to be able to get out of it. But I mean, the efficiency is still so much greater than anything else. I mean, I think video is 100 times more efficient than the next best way of branding. So if you even if you reduce it by 4 times, you're still going to be 25 times more efficient than anything else that's out there. So I don't really feel like video is a space that's going to go away anytime soon, or is going to be reduced to the point that you shouldn't do it. And I mean, the fact of the matter is, I'm not overly worried about it, because no matter how many people get into it, the fact that I have 2 years behind me, and if people get started now, if you're ahead of the curve, the better content is always going to prevail. People are going to watch the better content no matter what. So if you're able to dive in now, build the video business, and get yourself to a point where you are producing better content than your competitors, even if the space gets smaller, it's not going to hurt you.
But at the same token, let me point out that you shouldn't let that deter you, because,
Right.
and I tell people all the time, like, I could watch Bob's video, I could copy it verbatim, shoot it and put it on my market to my audience, and the 90+% have never heard of Bob and have never seen it. And so maybe even more than that. And so, you know, it's like, we always tell people all the time, like, the reality is this: of all of you watching this, there's probably well over 100 people watching. Less than 5% of you are actually going to take this advice and do something with it. And the key is consistency. You know, Bob, you said it earlier, don't be a one-hit wonder. And you got me thinking, there's several parody videos that I know of that got millions of views, and I've only heard from them one time. And even worse yet, they're always grabbing. So when Bob Tompkins or Noel Nielsen or Brad McCallum puts out a sexy video and they do it consistently, that same person will comment saying, "Ooh, look at mine." See, they're reaching, they're grabbing for attention rather than letting it come to them by just doing it by giving, right? And I wanted to bring that back up, Bob, because that's a brilliant point, because you're right. We didn't seek you out after the first one, even though it was amazing. And honestly, it wasn't subliminal. We didn't think, "Ooh, let's strategize here. Bob hasn't done enough videos yet. Wait till he does 3." You know, it wasn't like that. It just works itself out, you know, and you didn't just come and go. You've stuck around, and everybody starts to take notice. And then here you are. And I get it. Nobody on this call may have the same aspiration to be Bob Tompkins, or maybe you do, like I do. I want to grow up and be like Bob. But if you don't, and you just want to be a micro influencer, the key is being consistent. And also, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can reduplicate, make things your own, and just reduplicate it, regurgitate it to your audience, because odds are they've never heard of Bob Tompkins or Nick Niehaus or Tristan or Jeff Pfitzer. They haven't. And so don't let that be a deterrent. That's my soapbox, and I'll get off of it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Jeff, I think between the two of us, I have a better shot at being Bob Tompkins because I got the right color of beard. So, you know, and I know that's unfortunate, but
I'm also older. Yeah,
yeah, Jeff's a little short too.
There you go. Yeah, we all get a turn to take Jeff down, including himself, which is great.
I'm good at that. I'm good at that.
So yeah, and I that's a great point, Jeff. I do think that showing up over and over and over again is a really big part of this. And you know, the psychology of it, it's called the Familiarity Principle. I always love bringing the psychology into it. But it's fascinating because just human nature. And I think it comes, go back, thousands and thousands of years to when we were all basically in tribes, right? And so your brain developed to say to you, if you recognize someone, the more that you've seen them, the more familiar they are to you, the more trustworthy they are, because it basically sort of innately means that they're part of your community or your tribe, right? And so that instinct never went anywhere, right? It still sticks with us. But now we have video, and our brains don't know what a video is, right? It's only been around for like 100 years, so we didn't evolve with it. So when we see a video of someone, we actually think we're having a conversation with them, like parts of our brain sort of respond to it that way. And then every time we see them again, the same thing happens with pictures, but just not to the same extent, they become more familiar, right? So what you're essentially doing, and what Bob obviously is really accomplishing here, is all these people are getting to know him, he becomes more familiar to them, and then they automatically trust him, right? So that's the cool thing about it. It doesn't matter what you're talking about. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be about real estate. It can be whatever you want, but they innately start to trust you because that instinctual, kind of that instinct kicks in and says, hey, this is somebody that I can trust, right? So that's really, really powerful stuff. And the cool thing is, you don't need viral hits every single time to get those results. So we're about halfway through, a little bit past halfway at this point. I wanted to pause for just a second to let everybody know we do want you to have a chance to ask some questions. I did see one come in here just a second. So please start putting your questions in the chat that you have for Bob here today. I'll go through and I'll read whatever I see right now as they come in, and then we'll try to get a couple more at the end. But just want to make sure that you had a chance to do that. So one of the questions that just came in a few minutes ago, Bob, it's from Jenny here. And she says, how about doing a video going outside in your city and letting them know about it? E.g. like things like parks, restaurants, trails, et cetera. Do you have any tips or tricks on that front?
Yeah, I mean, so that's a very effective way of giving the community something that's valuable for them to watch. it's not a piece of content that I have done, but I'd be lying if I said it's not something that I haven't brainstormed and thought about. Because if you're able to key in on certain community events that are going on, or maybe a new park that's being built, or a weekly event that goes on downtown, if you go out there and create good content about that informs your community of what's going on, then people are definitely going to grow in their knowledge of you and their trusting of you. I mean, and those are two of the main three things that we look for to build out a video, is the know, like, and trust of the community. So making that sort of content definitely is good, because it's not, as long as you're not going out there and being like, if you want to buy a home in this area of town around this park, I'm the person you can call to set up that showing. Like that, the moment you make it about business, you're going to lose the viewer, because then they're going to see it as an ad. But if you go out there and you're like, hey, this park is great for kids. They've got this nice slide. They've got, this little area to play volleyball or whatever. Then people are going to begin to trust you, because they know that you're just giving them something to improve their lives. So if you're putting out that sort of content, it's absolutely a good strategy.
Very cool. All right. So let's talk a little bit more. We talked about sort of the beginnings of the strategy we were using, and then we worked our way up to sort of the viral video moment, so to speak. So let's talk a little bit about those videos, right? Because I think that's obviously the stuff that sort of stands out. People across the country have maybe seen. So you have this idea, right? So, and I want to talk about it from the perspective, it doesn't have to be a music parody video. I want to kind of give people advice across the spectrum, but you've got this idea for something that, maybe sort of has more of a potential to go viral. So let me ask you this first, like when you first had that idea, did you think to yourself like, oh, this really could go viral? Or was it more just, hey, this sounds like something fun to try?
So the first one was definitely more of like, we just want to have fun with this. My idea behind it was that if we could produce something that got 30 or 40,000 views around my hometown, and which is a lot of views, but I looked at it like, if I can get that out of this and produce something that's fun for people to watch and kind of make real estate relatable, I thought that was really the end goal of it. The second one, which was Bob Never Broke My Heart, was really more geared to being like an ad. It was very brand specific, talking about myself. And then the newest one, that one, I'd be lying if I said it wasn't made with the intention of trying to go viral, because I felt like the timing on it was really good. Right. And what's funny, it got a lot of traction. It's reached like 140,000 people, been viewed around 55, 60,000 times. And it is the worst performing video that I've put out that was a parody. So, if you go in with the intention of trying to go viral, you're probably not going to go viral.
Fair enough, right? There's no like kind of rule book to going viral, at least that I've ever found, right?
Right.
Well, remember the quote. Remember the quote that I just quoted you, Bob. We can repeat that. Are you doing video for your ego, to feed your ego, or to feed your family? Which one is it?
Yeah, exactly. So when you make the content to feed your ego, in my opinion, it kind of comes across that way. That you're putting out something to try and get attention. So when you do that, people are less likely to respond to it, because whether or not it's extremely noticeable, it does come across that content was for me and not for the viewer. I think when you truly have the intention of creating something fun to watch for someone, you're going to get a much better response on it.
Interesting. Yeah, that's great advice. What would you say is kind of the right attitude to carry into it? Obviously you sort of want to entertain. Should you not be thinking about the business impact at all? Should you be trying to just sort of be funny? What were kind of the thoughts you were having when you went into it?
Well, obviously you want to keep your brand, you want to protect your brand. So you don't want to go out and do something that's going to be detrimental just for the sake of humor or getting some shares. But for me, like, you really kind of have to go into those without really caring what people are going to think. Like, you want to create something that's fun for them to watch, but you don't want to really care what the response is, because you can't control that. All you can control is the work that you put into it, and creating the best possible product. If it doesn't resonate well, or if people think it's, goofy, or whatever, it is what it is. You can't control that. So if you obsess and you think too much about what the viewer is going to think, you're going to hinder yourself all along the process of creating the content.
Cool. All right. So let's talk about logistics next. So you have this idea. Let's just kind of stick with Old Town Realtors since that's where we started and obviously had the most views. You got the concept. What does the process of creating that look like? And obviously you have a background of sort of, you know, tweaking the lyrics of songs ahead of time, right? So it's a little more natural, comfortable for you. So you know, as you're watching this, you know, don't think specifically just about real estate parodies. Think about, you know, whatever your version might be, or sorry, music video parodies. But for Bob, like what was that process like? So you got the idea up until the point where you're actually ready to shoot the video. Was you know, was your script, storyboarding, like what did that look like?
So the way I work through the process, and it's hard for me to talk about it without dealing directly and specifically to the parodies. The parody videos, I'll take whatever song I want to do. Normally it's got some sort of chorus that I feel like I can play with and make it real estate related. I'll take that song and I'll listen to it pretty obsessively for about 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, to where I've internalized that song to where if it comes on the radio without even thinking about it, I can rehearse or recite every single word that's in that song. So once I've internalized the song, I sit down and I start scripting out lyrics for it. I always start with the chorus and then I break down every other line. Depending on the song, Old Town Road probably took me between 30 and 40 hours just to write the lyrics. It probably took me about 3 to 4 weeks of spending, you know, a couple hours every night just working on it. Because I want everything to fit in and line up extremely well with that original song. So I spend a ton of time working on those lyrics because the lyrics are the most important thing. If they don't resonate with somebody, people are gonna keep scrolling, because the video aspect is important, but without the lyrics being right, somebody will just scroll right past because it doesn't feel right when they're listening to it.
Right.
So then we take that, we storyboard it, probably spend about, I want to say 8 to 10 hours storyboarding. And then we shot that video for about 10 hours. So including internalizing the song, you could say, I mean, I spent probably 80 to 100 hours on that video before we put it out. So, and obviously hired a videographer. I don't think music videos or any sort of high-end production video should ever be shot, you know, by yourself, even though Brad McCallum will argue with that all day because he shoots them himself. So, you know, but if I don't have the technical skill, and very few people do, so I think you should absolutely hire that out. Otherwise, you're not going to know what you're doing.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, and it's obviously, one of the takeaways for me there is that the parts that you can make an impactful contribution to, which is scripting, preparation, acting skills on camera, which you do an amazing job of, that stuff you have skill for, right? Like that you have to be the one on camera. That's kind of the whole point. Then there's other parts that you can choose to do, but I do think it's okay to pass those to somebody else, right? I mean, as you're saying, shooting and editing, you know, unless you really want to become a amateur or even sort of semi-pro videographer, there's lots of people out there that are willing and ready to help with that stuff. So that's a good point. I do want to, we got about 15 minutes left, so I do want to make sure we collect any more questions that you all have. So again, go ahead and put them in the chat. I did see one just come in here in a second. I'll relay that in just a moment. As we're doing that, I do want to mention, I just put a link in the chat. So Bob is going to be joining us again in a couple weeks to do a deep dive breakdown of his #1 most impactful video, which is interestingly enough, not the Old Town Realtor video, but we're going to be talking about that inside of Business Video School. So if you want to have a chance to get a lot more detail from Bob and really kind of break down exactly why that particular video worked for him, we're going to be doing that in 2 weeks. So what I posted in the chat just now is a link to a demo and tour of Business Video School. So if you're not currently a student, if you're not currently a member and you want to check us out, it's no obligation. You know, it's obviously we're going to show you what is included. We're going to show you all the different aspects of the school, give you a chance to ask any questions you might have. And then there will be a chance to enroll if you'd like to at that point. So if you're curious about Business Video School, you want to have a chance to join us for the next conversation with Bob, go ahead and click that link. Make sure you get registered before you leave here today. Now I'm going to go back and check for questions. So here's another question for you, Bob, which is how often do you put out a video once a week. Is once a week okay? And then what is the typical length, approximately 2 minutes or so? What's your take on it?
So I put anywhere from 3 to 4 videos out per week.
Okay.
Which is a lot more than one per week. I mean, if you haven't been doing video, I think one a week is a great place to start. But if you're gonna get in front of people consistently, it needs to be way more than once a week, because we live in a time where people's attention spans are very short. So as quickly as they see you on social media, they also forget about you just as fast. So if you put out a piece of content that misses, then they're only going to watch like 5 to 10 seconds of it and keep going, and you're an afterthought. So that's why one a week to me just isn't enough. So when I'm putting out 3 to 4 videos a week, that keeps me in front of people almost daily, to where there's not the opportunity to forget that I'm putting out content, to forget that I'm selling real estate. I'm constantly in front of them on their news feeds. So for me, I think ideally you should be putting out a piece of content every day. But I think that that's extremely difficult to accomplish, especially if you are curating your own content. If you have a paid videographer on your team, or if you've got somebody hired out to produce that sort of content at that level for you, then it's far easier. And for me, I mean, I have a videographer on a retainer that does 2 to 4 videos for me per month, which takes a certain amount of stress level off of me from having to produce all that content on my own. So, it really depends on how much influence you want to have and how much attention you want on you. But, really the videos should be going out as much as possible. So for me, that's why for me too, if you look at my weekly content, they're all series related. So I have my podcast that we video. I have a weekly giveaway that I do. I have a beer of the week, and then I have Foodie Fridays, and they're all series related because people trust that to be going out every single week or every other week or whatever our release strategy is. So it builds trust, and also it makes it way easier to create the content because you're not searching for a new idea every time you have to put a video together.
Cool. Well,
Hey, Bob, how much non-video content do you put out when you say post daily? Because I agree wholeheartedly, you should be posting every single day on social. Mm-hmm. How much, if you're doing 3 to 4, does that mean that you're also putting out non-video content as well?
I do put out non-video content. When I do non-video content though, I try and make it highly personal to myself. So like it's an opportunity for people to actually get to know me. So I'll post about my daughter. I'll post about my wife. I'll post about something I have going on or something I'm struggling with, because it kind of breaks that wall between me being the person on the camera because everything we put out most of the time on social media and video content, it's all positive. It's all great. It makes life look awesome. So when I'm posting non-video content, I tend to do it in like blog form or mini blog form, longer descriptions, typically posted with a picture, which tend to have great engagement. And then of course, I do post stuff about like football and sports because I care a lot about that stuff, but I tend not to get as good an engagement on that when I do that.
And Jeff, I got to give you credit. I do think you make a video at least once a day. So I think
TikTok helps that cause, my friends. And that's why I'm a big proponent of TikTok, because it's so easy to create quick content. And I have a whole nother opinion on that, but this is not about me. This is about Bob.
So Bob, one question we did get, and I'm glad it came up because I was going to ask you this, is what are you feeling on putting ads behind your videos?
So, I'm all about ad spend. I haven't done it on any of my music videos just because the organic reach has been so good. I feel like the money I put behind it isn't worth it because I can get better reach organically with those videos. With my weekly content, the ones we do for restaurants, the one we do for beer of the week, I put money behind those every single week. So normally it's about $25-30, but it can generate a reach of 4,000 to 5,000. And because it's a good quality produced video, normally you're talking 20 to 30% of that reach results in viewership. So it's, if you're putting videos out and the engagement's not where you want it to be, but it deserves to be viewed, then absolutely put money behind it. But the thing is, where most people make the mistake on the boost post, they just click boost post and they don't actually target it as an ad. So you want to make sure that you're targeting the right demographic to be able to get those videos in front of the right people. And one thing I will say to that, the benefit of creating non-real estate content is that you don't have fair housing restrictions on how you can target those videos. You can target them to whoever you want to, because you're not, if I'm talking about a restaurant, I can target whoever I want for that. So there is a huge benefit to that.
And I know, and you're probably talking about Facebook, I would assume in this case. Do you do ads on any other platforms in addition to Facebook?
No, but Facebook's kind of my bread and butter. So yeah. That's where I spend most of my time.
No, that makes sense. Obviously, we all have platforms that we tend to focus on in terms of our day-to-day use. And I think that, until you're a team or something and you want to really start to expand outside of that, most people are on Facebook, so you're definitely doing that. Cool. Let's take a look at other questions here. Ideal length of video. Do you kind of have like a general sense of, my typical video is this long, or do you aim for a certain length with your video content?
So video length is very specific to what platform you're posting on. So if you're on TikTok with Jeff, then you're probably going to want to aim for about 15 seconds. That's probably where you're going to want to be on most of your videos. Right. For me, being very Facebook focused, it needs to be between 3 and 5 minutes. Facebook puts a huge emphasis on videos that are at least 3 minutes long. And then, stuff that's beyond 5, just from a retention standpoint, people don't want to watch that long on Facebook because it is a scrolling platform. Instagram, you probably want to keep it around a minute to a minute and a half. You're going to have to go to IGTV if it's over a minute long. And then YouTube, it can be as long as you want it to be because people are on that platform to watch long form content. It really just depends on what you're using to get your message out. And that's going to dictate what type of videos you're making too. Like Jeff can't do, my beer of the week reviews, or it'd be very difficult to do them on TikTok because people wouldn't want to watch that. It's not fast paced enough. It's a much longer form piece of content.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's a good point though. And this is what I do, by the way, because we create video, and Tristan was doing that today. If you notice this morning, we made a long video that we are going to post to YouTube and we will post to Facebook, but he also created just a snip that was a less than 60-second shot for TikTok and also Instagram stories. So you got to shift that mindset. So if you're not married to one platform, which you shouldn't be, you always just have to think, how can I take one piece of content and make it multifaceted across multiple platforms? It's a good point, Bob.
Cool. All right, folks. Well, we do have just 5 minutes left. So I do want to give you one final reminder. If you got a question for Bob that you want to ask, we probably have quite time for maybe 2 more questions or so. Go ahead and put it into the chat or the Q&A section, either one of those, and we'll get a hold of it. I'm also going to post one more time our webinar where we're doing a tour of Business Video School. So if you're liking this content, if you're somebody who wants to learn more about using video in your business, please go ahead and RSVP for that so we can give you a tour and demo. You can decide if it's the right fit for you, and then you can join us for our next conversation with Bob here in a couple weeks. So Bob, as we get wrapped up here, one other question I had for you. You sort of touched on this briefly. The idea that, the first 5 seconds or so of the video really has to kind of hook the person. We talk about the hook of the video all the time. Do you have any tips there? Like, what are some things that we should be thinking about doing at the very beginning of a video to make sure it catches someone's attention and gets them to stick around and watch more of it?
So my opinion on this may be a little different than like Jeff's or yours. I feel like introductions to videos kill videos because people we're in such a short attention span. People want to scroll. So for me, I like to just dive right into the content. Like, hey, we're here. I'm having this beer. This is what we're drinking. Let's get into it. I don't like the long drawn out. I don't like a 20-second intro because I feel like people they leave on that right away. So for me, for the Bob and Brad show, we take a piece of content that's, the best quote from the show. We put that at the beginning. So people know that they're going to be able to learn more about that when they get into it. Foodie Fridays, we start with clips of the food, and it runs through into a fast-paced intro into the show. So For me, it's all about how quick can you get to the content, because if someone's interested in that content, they're going to watch. But if you take any sort of time to describe what you're talking about, people are already on to the next post.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, we do have 2 final questions, so we got those both in. The first was going to be shooting on a phone, or is there a good starter camera you recommend? What do you choose there?
It depends what type of content you're making. So if you're just going to put stuff like in stories, if you're going to be on TikTok, you can shoot from your phone all day long. I think that as we were talking about, the video space getting more crowded, I think as it gets more crowded, you need your content to really stand out, whether that's on Instagram or Facebook. So I would recommend buying a starter camera. I have a Sony a6400, which is about a $700-800 camera. And then I have a Sigma 30 millimeter lens on it right now, which is about a $300 lens. So it's about an $1,100 setup. But at the same time, if you spend that sort of money on the camera, you're going to be, you've got skin in the game. You're going to be dedicated to actually creating content. Yeah,
that's a great point. All right. And then final question to wrap things up. If somebody wants to see your videos or get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
So yeah, go to my Facebook page, my business page. It's facebook.com/Better Call Bob Tompkins. If you go there, there's a video tab. I've got a few playlists set up there. You can look at parody videos, listing videos, beer of the week, and then every other video is there as well. It's the best place to find all my content.
All right, very cool. Well, we got to get wrapped up at this point. There's another webinar starting in 2 minutes here, so we got to vacate the room. But Bob, just tremendous stuff. I mean, this was absolutely great. I completely agree with most of your takeaways. I think you gave us a ton of awesome, actionable advice today, which is, I think that's very beneficial. Things we can actually take and apply to our businesses. So thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, Nick. Thanks for having me, man.
All right, cool. Well, folks, that's all we got for you today. Again, if you want to go ahead and click that link, you got about 10 more seconds in the chat to go ahead and get registered for our Tour of Business Video School. Thanks so much again to Bob, and hopefully you can join us again for our next interview here in just a few weeks. We'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good.